In this video, I want to talk about Proverbs. All Proverbs. Proverbs are verbal puzzles. All of them. Every proverb is a verbal puzzle. So when you find people that can't figure out why there's conflict in Proverbs, they're not reading them in the way that they're meant to be. A proverb, let's look at it real quick here. This is just a couple of quick things from the internet here. It is a saying often in metaphorical form that typically embodies a common observation or an adage. A penny saved is a penny earned. I've got one down here at the bottom. I don't think it's exactly right, but it's something like holding a grievance is like drinking poison, thinking it will kill your enemy. That one's actually not very difficult to see right there. We understand what's going on. But a proverb is a simple, traditional saying that expresses a perceived truth based on common sense or experience. Proverbs are often metaphorical and use formula language. A proverbial phrase is a proverbial expression is a type of conventional saying similar to proverbs and transmitted by oral. Proverbial expression. Okay. All right. Well, the point here is that if you read it literally and you find that there's conflict in here, that's what the problem is. This is not a proverb, but consider this. First of all, I'm going to suggest these verses play out in the psyche. Oh, by the way, my name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the channel. The verses play out in the psyche, and we interact with them. So if I was to say something or if I was to read something in a spiritual document that told me that I was supposed to love my enemy, and then somewhere else in that same document, I might find something that tells me I'm supposed to destroy my enemy or to kill my enemy. How do I reconcile those variations? And we see where that occurs, and we see people reconcile it. And we see people choose one or the other and say, I'm going to go with this part. The other part's obsolete. Doesn't matter. This conflict occurs because they're being used in the physical world, not in the mental world. The enemy that we have is what we have inside of us that hurts us, that creates conflict in our minds, that creates angst, hurt, anger, shame, acting out, even sitting there alone by yourself and just not feeling good, wondering why not this, why not that, how come this, how come that. That's the enemy right there. That's the enemy to the life experience that we're having. And to love it will make it go away. To destroy it will make it go away. What we want to do is get rid of those things. Only when we utilize the verses in that manner and understand that the words that they're using are analogous to something in the psyche do we begin to get rid of the conflict. Okay, I want to start with the understanding that this is a very specific verse style. That a proverb is going to be very similar to what we're going to see from Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching and the Buddha in the Dhammapada. Let's just take a look at a couple of quick examples here. If I was to just pop this open and read something from Lao Tzu, return is the movement of the Tao, yielding is the way of the Tao. All things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. We don't have to interpret that. That's just what it sounds like. Let me read something from here. A mendicant who delights in earnestness, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, moves about like fire, burning all his fetters, small or large. That's the master. And then we get something in a proverb that sounds like this. What your eyes have seen, do not hastily bring into court. Or for what will you do in the end when your neighbor puts you to shame? You see how they will have this kind of this interesting. It's not really sing-song or anything like that, but it's good for you to do this, bad for you to do that, good to do this, bad to do that. You feel good if you work this way and you feel bad if you work that way. So it's going to be something that's very simplified, but if you step back and look at it, that's the similarity. It's thicker than what we're used to because this is from they had it memorized and it was a storytelling culture. We're kind of treating it, we don't get into it the way they did. So that's a style. These, however, are both teaching the same thing. They're meant to turn inward. They tell you right up front, yeah, this is it. Turn inward. Go take care of it. In the material from Solomon, all of the Abrahamic material is done in it with a different purpose. The carrier shell that's carrying it with is a religious one instead. It has the words they use to shift, to carry it in the population are religious of nature instead of spiritual turn inward. It's religious and turn outward in nature. It's still the same template. One of them has incredibly higher appeal for various reasons. Okay, let's go ahead and bring up Proverbs here. And actually, before I start, I want to throw something out here for the people that have been following along and that are like seeing what's happening. I want to show you there's 31 chapters here. Right at the beginning here, right as we get towards the end of chapter 1, there is a verse here that says, "Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way and be sated with their own devices." That should sound very familiar. I'll get to it. Okay. I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version, Updated Edition. I downloaded this from BibleGateway.com. And here we go. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. There's an announcement. Prologue. For learning about wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for gaining instruction in wise dealing, righteousness, justice, and equity, to teach shrewdness to the simple, knowledge and prudence to the young. Let the wise too hear and gain in learning, and the discerning acquire skill. To understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. To understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. These are proverbs. Every one of them is a puzzle and needs to be understood in that way. It can be read plain language, but let's look through a couple of things here and just discuss the idea. What I'm going to suggest, first of all, and just bear with me, it's going to take a while for this to happen. They had these stories memorized. They got this by itself. Hey, I got a new one for you. Proverbs. You have to memorize it. They're not reading. They're not writing. This is 3,500 years ago. They're memorized and they're going word of mouth. So there's puzzles in here, and the way to find the puzzles is to know the story, to have it memorized. We don't have it memorized. What you're going to see me doing here is pretending like I'm using memorization when I'm using the computer to find stuff that we're missing because we don't have them memorized. But the instructions, imagine if you are getting this back there. I'm some little shepherd kid and somebody wants to help me out and they give me a story. They've got something in here for me to find a way out. It's up to me to find that in there, but everything is inside of the story. It's coming by itself. It's not coming as a Bible. It's coming as a story that you listen to and try to memorize. Okay, so right after hearing then that there are riddles, and I need to understand them, I hear right next, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. And I have to look at that and go, wow, what is the fear of the Lord? How do I do that? Am I supposed to be afraid of God or love God? I don't get it. That's how I treat it. I look at it that way. And of course, I want to do my best to stay away from everybody's belief, but I don't believe in a God out there. I believe that there is something in here that we're to connect with. So it might not be okay for everybody, but I think you might like to hear this anyway, and you can still apply it to your own understanding of life. Here, look at this one right at the end of 25. It's funny to pick at. It is. It is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a contentious wife. Sounds like a couple of guys swilling beer, smoking cigars in the man cave or something. You're like, what is that? That's a strange thing to put there. It's very old. It's very dated, but they're analogous. You can't read them literally. It wouldn't make sense. You have to become part of the story. The house is me. I am the consciousness that lives in there. And the contentious wife is my inner being that might be fine because I've had an okay life, or it's acting out. Better to live in one small place, isolated, than experiencing that inner turmoil. Suddenly the verse becomes magically something for me instead of something that's silly. You see how those work. Okay, in this video I'll leave out the numbering and word network that I'm finding. It does appear here in some manner. But what I've learned from that other work is to start searching different words here. For example, this fear of the Lord in the beginning of is knowledge. I all of a sudden want to know what that fear of the Lord is. So I'm just going to type fear into the document, thinking that they might have preloaded something throughout the document. Sure enough, I see 20 results, which is one of my analogs that's collected in Genesis. It's actually one up there, Sodom and a lineage. Other material, I won't get into it here. At any rate, what we have here is I've isolated every one of those where it says fear of the Lord is the beginning. I've taken all of them out. They're spread throughout the document, here and there. I've gathered them up in one place. Let's go look at that. Okay, so I go ahead and go through my verses. I'm going to go ahead and just double check I've got it all right here. You can see it's error prone. I'm doing a copy and a paste from document to document, line by line, piece by piece, and then changing some font things and things like that. I got my fingers in it a lot. It's very error prone. I have to realize that. But things look pretty good here. I see this coming up. And so here's the first appearance of it. It was in chapter 1, verse 7. It said the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And then it appeared again in verse 29. Because they hated knowledge, they did not choose the fear of the Lord. So we see right here that we've got knowledge and knowledge in both of them. There's a one way or the other. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and if you don't have knowledge and hate knowledge, you're not choosing the fear of the Lord. So right there we've got knowledge is going to be part of what we're looking for is what it is. Let's read of what it is to be in fear of the Lord. Knowledge. Down in chapter 2, verse 1, I'm going to read through this whole thing. It needs to be heard in a flow. My child, if you accept my words and treasure up my commandments within you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding, if you indeed cry out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it, as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. So first of all, before defining it necessarily, what you see that they're doing right there is they're starting to put later on in the document the things that they're loading the necessary things in here, but we don't see it. Imagine your own life, things that you've known, that your hobbies, you know all the pieces and parts, the sizes, how many of them, what works, we learn a lot of stuff. This was their technology. They had them memorized. We're not seeing these because we're not looking at them right. But if you start looking at them, okay, let's go back then and just take a look at some of those and see what we're getting at. Again, please understand that what I'm finding here, I'm doing it because I'll be clear, what I'm calling God, this thing that we want to connect with and talk to is actually that part of our inner self, a higher awareness that we can get to where we look at ourselves and say, I don't feel what's going on. You know what you need to do, don't you? We can get there, and that's that part we need to connect with. However, the conscious tends to live through the experiences, and the fear keeps us there instead of finding out how to begin managing mental travel back and forth between the hurt and the disconnected from the hurt. So that's how I approach it. So what I'm coming up with is based on that. I don't mean to offend anybody. At the same time, what I can assure you, all I'm doing is talking through something that I see. I'm not preaching, and I don't want anybody to believe anything. You got to figure these out on your own. They're mental puzzles for us. At least that's how I see them. Okay, let's go look at a couple more of them and see what we have here. Actually, let me review this up here. My child, if you accept my words and treasure my commandments within you. Okay, so we're looking for some kind of truth and reality. Making your ear attentive to wisdom. Okay, pay attention to wisdom. What is wisdom? And inclining your heart to understanding. So understanding is important. I find that faith and understanding are two different things. Understanding is something that is interactive. If you indeed cry out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search it as for hidden treasures. Does that sound like Seek and knock for righteousness' sake. Seek and you will find. Knock, it will be open. Then you will understand the fear of the Lord. We're looking for righteousness and find the knowledge of God. The knowledge of God is that higher self, wherever we emerge from. All right, this is one where I go through and I look at all the words and I think it through my mind and I realize it's a larger version of other teachings that are all starting off with the same thing. And this is doing it as well right here. It's letting us know that it's a mental process and it's a connection to higher self, a disconnection from the pain and the hurt. That hasn't come about yet. That's going to emerge in the story. But right here, it's mental. That's what it tells me. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Evil is an analogous term. I'm not going to call it here evil. Like all of the material, anytime it uses, in Buddhism right here, if a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, that's the first verse. It's a mental process. And what does this mean at the core level? What it means is that you've had a memory and a perception of that memory. It does not mean that you are evil. It means it continues to be evil. We cannot call it evil. We have to call it something that is hurtful to us. It is evil to our existence, to our continued existence, to the people around us, to our own sanctity, to our peace of mind, to the way we feel in our hearts. Okay, so evil is that we can't call that evil, as if you were evil. It's not interactive at that level. You could sit there and say, I'm not being evil. Why is life bad? I got hurt. It's the hurt stuff that we have to realize that's what they're calling evil. The being wise in your own eyes, it's tricky. It's actually, it's part of what we do. Being wise in your own eyes means that part where we're living life, not aware that what we're seeing and what we're grasping onto is becoming, and what we judge and how we judge it, how we see things. Life works through cause and effect. When we see the final manifestation of something, we're wiring our own brains to effect. We don't understand what's going on. We end up being a part of this mess. That is looking at it through our own eyes. We need to step back and see it from a different space. Those are judgments we make. That's a normal process. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. We don't want that stuff. We need to get rid of it. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. This is all mental stuff, insight. Prolongs life, but the years of the wicked will be short. Okay, this is spiritual, not physical. Life is being aware and feeling good and knowing what's going on. Death is living life without that awareness. The fear of the Lord prolongs life. So we have longer life by understanding this stuff. We have longer awareness. We have longer control of our own life. The people that are, the wicked, if you were to say people that haven't got things resolved, they're not wicked, but they're acting out anyway. They might be doing wicked things, tearing down barriers and smashing down things and then saying there's nothing wrong with it. What is their life like? What is their experience like? What do you think that it must be like to be inside of their heads? Is that life? Or did they leave that behind at childhood when everything was carefree and fine and nobody hurt anybody? Everything was okay. Now it's something different. We're looking at something spiritual. We don't want to use those terms. Well, anyway, okay, let's move on. Those who walk uprightly fear the Lord, but one who is devious in conduct despises him. Right here, it just used the term uprightly that it hadn't used before. So I'm going to say uprightly is being generated as also another term to describe this, being upright. The one who is devious in conduct despises him. Okay, devious in conduct, we have to define this one too. This is a tough one. We are all devious in conduct. It's the same thing as saying, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. What this means is that when we start living life, we're not aware of anything. We just start, let's go, let's see what there is. At first, things are okay, but then we see stuff that's bad. We begin judging it. We begin having experiences that take us from that, man, I was open and everything was fine. I trusted and things felt wonderful, to what has happened to me in life. Those things have happened along the way. As we talk about devious conduct, that's what that is. It's an analogous term. We've all experienced devious conduct, and the devious conduct is really sinning It's living life. It's having the thoughts and the experiences that make it so that our life is now not okay. We have to unwrap from it, and our ego is going to make us look at that and say, boy, that never applies to me. It doesn't apply to me. I'm not that person right there. But if you find another way to use it, you'll find that it's interactive. But the ego will get in the way. It will. You have to look at the terms in different ways. We have to identify them. Remember, we know sometimes words have two meanings. Okay, returning back to Proverbs then, establishing what this fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instructions. This is a mental process, and we need to get back to a point of purity. We've connected to things as we experience life. It starts off then with, hear, my child, your father's instruction, and do not reject your mother's teaching. For they are a fair garland for your head, and pendants for your neck. All right, we need to unwrap that. It's being taught to me, so whoever this is I am the child. I am the one being talked to. I am the one looking for this to be a part of me. The father's instruction comes from the higher self, and the mother's teaching is what? The mother's teaching is what comes out of us, what emerges. That is what acts out of us. The mother becomes a product of the father's experiences in life, instruction. The child is the one that acts out. I am the one acting out. They are a fair garland for your head. They go around me, and pendants for your neck. They trap me. My child, if sinners entice you, do not consent. Okay, you got to unwrap these. You have to make it up here. It's not about a child not following sin, although that shouldn't happen. There's something more inward than that, even more primary. And that is when we realize that that's us as a young person beginning to attach to life. Don't let that happen. We do anyway, but that's what it's teaching us right here. We would get the same thing. This is where the whole spare the rod and spoil the child comes from, where people say this means, God says you're supposed to whip your kids if they're bad, spank them, whatever. Don't hold back on that. And I'm not going to get into all of that. I know that some people use it as a justification to just start wailing away, welting the hell out of their kids. And I know that firsthand. So it is, you can read it outwardly, or you can say that the kids are the offspring of what I have inside of me that need to be resolved. That is what really needs to happen. So depending on how you're going to use it, what you're capable of, outward or inward, you're going to get different results and different answers. If you keep it outward looking, you're going to have conflict and strange things. If you translate it all as analogs into the psyche for self-healing in the same manner over and over again, the conflict ceases. Let's go back and take a look at that verse that I had mentioned in the beginning. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way and be sated with their own devices. And actually, I'm going to get more of it. For waywardness kills the simple, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But those who listen to me will be secure and will live at ease without dread of disaster. That right there. I'm going to grab that verse and isolate it and make some comparisons with other material from other places. Okay, here we go. I've got Proverbs from Solomon, 29 through 33 right here. That because they hated knowledge, all the way down to live at ease without dread of disaster. Now, what I've got is two other examples up here. One of them is the Tao Te Ching from Lao Tzu, and I'm going to be using the Dhammapada from the Buddha. And what I'm going to do is make some comparisons, some religious comparisons here. And in Lao Tzu, what we have here is something called naming is the origin of all particular things. This is one of the first teachings in the book, and what this is actually getting to is the idea that as we begin to have experiences in life, that is what we're naming, that we're going to become products of that naming. Where did you come from, and what happened to you along the way, and how do you still hold that inside of you? That is what that means right there. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Once we get it into the psyche, it's a mental process. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Desire is an analog. It does not mean desire that I desire it. It means that I'm holding on to something that I'm not letting go of. I must desire it, right? No, I don't consciously desire it, but I don't desire to get rid of it. So what's the problem here? Free from desire, free from hanging on to anything, you realize the mystery. However, caught in desire, these are the pain, the shame, the hurt, the guilt. You see only the manifestations. We continue to see those emerge in our life, and it hurts us, and it hurts the quality of our life and the quality of life of the people with us. When we move into the Buddha, the Dhammapada, it's a very short book, the one I've been showing here, the purple one. This is the very first verse, the very first part. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. We're a product of our experiences, our perceptions. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a person speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows them as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. In this type of a verse, we become the component parts of it. They're using analogous component parts in there. You know, in the first example, you were just caught in desire. Down here, we've got an ox, a wheel, carriage, other things going on. Those represent us. They always represent us. So the evil thought is the same thing as a caught in desire. It's something that you're holding on to that is not resolved, that is acting out. That evil one is a hurt. It doesn't mean we've done it, or it means we're holding it. It is evil to us. It's evil to life. Pain follows. It continues to cycle as the wheel. It goes around of the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. I am the ox that draws the carriage, going through life. So you see where up above it says caught in desire, caught into what you're hanging on to. You see only the manifestations. You see the repeat of them. Down in Buddha's where it's blue, pain follows them as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage, if that unresolved thought is left in place. And then it goes on to say, all that we are is the result of what we have thought again. But it goes on to say, it is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. And if a person speaks or acts with pure thought, happiness follows them like a shadow that never leaves. So again, like up above, free from desire, free from hanging on to anything, you realize the mystery. Everything just goes good in life. Down here, with a pure thought, your mind is clear. All these things are resolved. Happiness follows them like the shadow that never leaves. The mystery. Proverbs, Solomon. This is a little bit longer. It's built up to telling us what to do and what the fear of God is, or the fear of the Lord is, actually. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, we determined what that is already in the video right here. It's a lot thicker. It's layered in deeper. It's harder to find our way through this material. It still plays out in our mind, though. It's a mental process where we are free of things. We want to be not connected to things. And because we would not have the counsel and despised all the reproof, therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way. What is that? The fruit. That is the manifestation of what emerges from the garden of our minds, and be sated with their own devices. We are caught in desire. You see only the manifestations. We will eat the fruit of their way and be sated with our own devices. With an evil thought, pain follows as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. Do you see the correlation? Therefore, they shall eat the fruit of their way. The fruit of the way, the fruit comes from my garden. These are analogs, so the fruit is the experiences of my life. What is the experience of my life? I eat that based on the way I am, the way I've thought. For waywardness kills the simple, and the complacency of fools destroy them. But those who listen to me will be secure and will live at ease without dread of disaster. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. You will live at ease without dread of disaster. Happiness follows them like a shadow that never leaves. You see that? It's right there. And it's right up front too. It's a little bit longer, but it's right in the beginning of Proverbs. So yeah, it would be a fun thing to go through for somebody. It's a little bit different. It's It's fun. It looks like it would be exciting. I still need to keep doing a few other things. And stuff like this gets very thick. It takes a while to begin to unwind what is happening. It's a practiced thing, a mental process. Anyway, I hope the video was fun and interesting. We have to decode these things like that. They mean something at a deeper level, but it takes work. And remember, this is what they did. They didn't have electricity, cell phones, anything. They had stories. And they were intelligent. They didn't sit and look at the grass grow. This is big stuff. We're missing it. We lost it. Anyway, hope the video was interesting. See you in the next one.